Hello, good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to, I think this is our fourth session of the Undeniable Sessions with Get Her Hired. This is a new series we're designing and working with great partners from around the world who have great information and insights to share that will help you on your career journey and on your job search path. Today, I'm really excited to have Julie Stoltman with me from Reframe Leadership and Careers and Career and Leadership, excuse me. And this is going to be a really important session, and we will have Q&A. So if you've got questions, you are welcome to add them in the chat at any point. We do have some moderators here who can help moderate the questions too. So we want to make sure that you know that. Before I get any further started and introducing Julie, if you would like to put your name in the chat and let us know where you're calling in from, if you feel like you want to be brave and use this as a moment to network, you can certainly also put in your LinkedIn URL if you would like to. All right. Okay. Anne-Marie is here. She's not being a moderator right now. That's fine. We'll figure that out later. Okay. Awesome. Hey, Robert. Oh, you're in Seattle. That's where Julie is too. Fantastic. Okay. Well, today's session is something that most of us have felt, and we don't always know what to do with it. And that is feeling stuck. So if you are feeling stuck, you're in the right place because Julie is really skilled at helping people get unstuck. And this is why we're having this conversation. And it's really uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable when hi, Lourdes.
Hi.
When we don't know exactly what we want, when we're feeling a little stuck. And we're going to just explore what this might be, how to interpret it, and what to do with it. And that's where Julie's going to come in to share with us. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Julie Stoltman of Reframe Career and Leadership. Julie's work is all about helping people reconnect to their values, find clarity about what meaningful work looks like, and create careers that actually feel good. She does all those things. She's amazing. She believes that everyone deserves to thrive at work. And that's a radical idea in the world today. That in the world today, we're often asked, or we feel like we are compelled to shrink ourselves down to survive. And Julie helps people by doing exactly the opposite. Well, so whether you're a leader on the call today, wondering what's next, or if you're someone quietly questioning your own path, Julie has a way of helping people find the language for the truth that they're carrying inside. Julie, welcome. Thank you for being here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Uh, and we have known each other maybe 3
Yeah,
years.
a couple of years with
Yeah.
a riveter. Yeah.
Through the Riveter, that's right. Julie and I were both members of the Riveter, which is a now a networking and kind of media group helping women business owners and women in general achieve their goals. It's led by Amy Sterner Nelson.
Mhm.
And back pre-pandemic, the Riveter had physical office locations. They were women-focused co-working spaces, and Get Her Hired was one of the early members of one of those co-working spaces. Lourdes, you remember I think I brought a board meeting over to one of those offices once. Yeah, yeah. And
And
Lourdes,
what
by the way, Lourdes on my team here. Thanks for being here and helping moderate everything and keep us flying. All right. So Julie, how would you introduce yourself? I just went on and on introducing you, but how do you tell us about you?
I mean, one day I'll get an elevator pitch that feels authentic to me, but
Ooh,
I will.
I know someone who can write one for you.
Great. Um, so I am basically a coach and a facilitator. So I'm based in Seattle, Washington. I work primarily with people who are mid to senior level career professionals, and they are thinking about what comes next work wise. And so the way I support people is through individual coaching, but also, and I'm excited to talk about kind of group coaching, which is what I do a lot of work, and facilitation. So bringing teams, boards, leadership groups together to really be able to sit in the messy bit, which we all have that mess,
Mhm.
and try to figure out what matters and how to move forward so that people can show up and live their lives and do the things that they want to do without wasting time and energy.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you do group coaching too, because something we find at Get Her Hired, we work with individuals and people may not always express it, but the job search can feel very lonely.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people, when they get laid off, they think they're a bad person somehow and it's their fault. And I love that you do that group coaching because being together in this makes it so much better, so much better.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so much about demystifying and normalizing. Like if you are someone and you are just like, I need to job search, it can feel really heavy, it can feel really messy, it can feel really personal. And truly, this is something where we don't go through life alone, so there's no reason to think that we should go through our career pivots or job searches or kind of getting out of uncomfortable, potentially toxic workplaces alone. This is not,
Mhm.
this is a complete fallacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Julie, how did you even think of becoming a career coach? I'm sure there might be some people on here today who feel stuck and maybe they have a little bit of a calling to do something like you do. But so tell us what was that like for you? Why did you want to get into
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, I mean, I did not set out to be a career coach. I was working in public policy. I was kind of working for elected officials. I had a background in political science, gender studies, and got to do some really cool things in my career. But there was always this sense of, well, this isn't it. And so when I talk about kind of how I came to this place, it is, I always knew that my kind of life's purpose was to make the world a better place for women and girls. But hey, there are a lot of ways to do that. And so figuring out the how was something where I was kind of bouncing between different things. And I really say, like, I didn't start this business and I didn't like set out to be a career coach. What I did was I built a workshop. I kind of built something for the people that I was working with who were just constantly talking about how stuck they felt and they had terrible bosses. And I was remembering all the times that I had been in jobs. And I think we've all had the experience of like the bitch and bond session with your work colleague where it's like everything's a mess. And so we're just gonna like get really close and bond through complaining about what's going on.
Trauma bonding, right?
Bonding, yep, it's totally normal. There's no judgment on that. But I kind of was connecting the dots. I was in this place where I was working with boards and executive leadership teams, and I was hearing a lot of like, oh, these millennials, they don't really know how hard it is, or they don't know how to work. And then I would go into the break rooms, right? So I'm going from the boardroom to the break room, and there are these just brilliant people who are working so hard, so many women, and oftentimes they're feeling as if they're not doing enough. They're not getting any recognition. They're trying and trying and trying, but the work keeps coming. And so it kind of felt like this click to me. This is a theme. Like I have been one of these people. I have friends who are like these people. I am in these spaces with people, and I didn't set out to say I'm going to coach these people, but I did set out to build a space where we could talk about what's going on. And so that kind of evolved from this in-person workshop that I did back for the first time in 2018 at like my local bookshop, with a group of friends who were in all different careers and industries. And I just saw this magic happen because when you come into a space and you are talking about feeling stuck and not knowing what you want to do, but you hear other people who seem really accomplished and in really cool jobs say the same thing, there is
Yeah.
this collective sigh of relief And it's so powerful, and it allows like all the kind of stuckness to just like part like the sea for a moment. And then we can
Mhm.
get clear and think about like, what do we want going forward?
Yeah. 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 Julie, that's wonderful. Our last session we had Laura Best on, and she's the founder of the Passion Collective, and she talked in that session about finding something you're passionate about.
Mhm.
And it sounds to me like you went from a place of hearing about a problem, connecting with people, building out something you were passionate about solving for. And then by doing that, kind of accidentally created this business for yourself in a way.
That's a lovely synopsis, Kate. Yes, that is that is effectively what happened.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what happened with Get Her Hired as well. People asked me for advice when I got laid off and they followed me. And I started offering, some things for people, and there was more people asking for more help, and yes, and here we are.
Yeah.
So if anyone out there is feeling stuck and you are feeling drawn to doing something that feels close to your heart, whether it's social justice work or whether it's, career coaching, or it might be, working with kids, or it could be, working with people in a healthcare situation, anything like this. Just go for it, try some stuff out, and you might surprise the sugar out of yourself where it can take you, right? Like, not intentional, and here both of us are living very fulfilled lives, helping other people, and that's really wonderful. So tell me this, and again, if anyone on here has questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and Lourdes is going to queue those up for us, and we'll get to them in just a minute, but you can get those questions going for Julie now. um, so you've talked to thousands of people. Um, what are the common themes that come up when you're in these conversations with these individuals, right? Because you and I talk to a lot of individuals. And like you said
Yeah.
before, sometimes people think no one else is struggling with this problem. So, what are some of those themes you see coming up? Let's help people feel more connected and close right now, because I bet some of them are going to feel pretty close to home for some people on the call.
Yeah. So I will say the number one thing I hear when I get on calls is I don't know how to translate my skill set. I have to translate it. It's totally like I totally appreciate that feeling. And my question is always, well, you could probably translate it in a lot of ways. What do you want to do more of? And so what I will say is people, when they are feeling stuck, when they're kind of coming to me, they tend to jump straight to it's all on me to figure out. I've got to figure this out. Like there's an answer somewhere that I just have to figure out. They jump to how do I do it? Like, okay, all right, so I got to do the resume, I got to do my cover letter, I got to start doing these things, I got to networking. They're jumping straight into like the how. And one of
Mm.
the biggest things that I try to emphasize, and like I can work with people who opt into this, is we have to pause. We have to be able to take a breath. And pausing is not this well, go have a relax and sit by the lake and think about it. Pausing is really active. It's really intentional, Kate. Like, you know this from when people come in and they're like, make me make sense on paper. There
Yes.
has to be this moment where you are, because you are an adult who has lived a life, has done lots of different things. A pause is a moment to be able to reflect back and then synthesize, like make sense of where you are right now. So if I was someone early career, I may have set out and said, oh yeah, I've got all the hours in my week to be dedicated to this job. And like, sure, I've got a partner, but I like to run. There are these things. When you get 10, 15, 20 years into your career, your life looks totally different than it did at the outset. And you have to
Yeah.
be able to take stock of that and say, okay, well, the things that I wanted that were important to me at the start are different. And how does that change what I want to be able to set out to do next? And so I think the pause piece is a really big theme. And the second thing that's really difficult is in order to pause effectively, you do have to slow down and you do have to step into discomfort. Like you have to allow these feelings that, like, I'm not good enough. I didn't do enough. Wow, I stayed too long. Gosh, she's more accomplished than me on her LinkedIn profile. Like you do actually have to allow those feelings to come up, because if you don't, then you're just going to be reacting from them. And so for many
Oh,
people, it's, I'm just going to push down these feelings and just keep going and going and going. I'm going to push down the
yeah,
feelings and I'm just going to apply for a million different things that I see. And that feels like you're doing work, but it's reactive work. And I've seen people do that and then come back and say, but I'm right back where I'm just in a different job, but I'm the same problems are there.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. I can relate to that. We often meet with people that feel like they're in crisis. And if you feel like you're in crisis, you are in crisis. I
Yeah.
mean, that's true. And safety first. So making sure that your physical and mental health is okay. Because we talk to people who are in very toxic environments and like, is it safe for you to be there?
Yeah.
Okay, we check there first. And then, there can be a lot of legit panic that people have.
Hmm.
Um, and with love and understanding, saying, hey, it's okay if you just need to get a job right now. That's fine.
Yep.
And, and so it's not either, it's not black and white. It's like, and let's do what you're talking about there, Julie, which is yes, get the job, but let's consider that a step because we still want to move forward. And instead of like reacting and getting a job and thinking that'll solve everything, get the job, but be proactive in thinking about, okay, what can you do next then? That it's not the end when you land this kind of temporary position. And please, I don't know, Julie, like I say to people, and I would love to hear your take on this. You don't owe a company 10 years of your life. So if you take a position for your health, mental health, and physical health and well-being, and you leave a company, it's something that's an okay reactionary job for 6 months. That's okay. It's
Hmm.
okay. Do you see that? How do you feel about that, Julie?
Oh, absolutely. And so, like, one thing to go back to is like this idea of a pause. It does not have to be this, like, hey, I'm taking 4 months off to be able to pause or something. This can even be like, hey, I know something needs to change. I need to take a day off of work to like clear my head, have some time. Like, so there's lots of different ways to think about the pause. But yes, absolutely. I talk about the idea of interim jobs. So if you
Oh, I
go
like that.
through, like if we go through like a 4 week workshop series or a 4 week kind of coaching session, and people get really clear on their hypothesis about what's going to support them next, one of those things might be, okay, I've looked at my budget, I've looked at kind of where I am. I need to find a job where I am making X amount of money. And I'm okay if this is a job for 6 months, a year and a half, while I'm recalibrating and while I'm figuring out what's most important. Because if you are transitioning from a really toxic job where there like weren't boundaries and you are having to put in place a lot of new habits for yourself, you're not going to be able to go straight into the next thing that's going to solve all the problems. It's like, it
Yeah.
is, I think I talk a lot about, Kate, that this is a normal stage of adult development that no one talks about.
Thank you. Tell us more. Tell us more. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you go to school and maybe you go to college, maybe you go to grad school, you start your job, but it is actually a really normal way that adults learn to be able to take the time to think about what did they like about something, what didn't they like, what would they do differently next time, and make sense of it. So like we just don't talk about that being normal because we're still on this path where the people who are leading companies, leading organizations may have grown up and thought, oh, hey, you stay at your job for your whole career, right? Like we know that's not true now, but people who are making the decisions to create the structures and organizations, they're still there and there might be the mindset, but we have to be able to work actively to change that because it is so normal to pause, to take stock, to recalibrate, to set a new intention, and then make a plan to get there.
Yeah, yeah. Just hearing you talk about that process makes my shoulders go down. It seems like Okay, okay, I can do this. And it doesn't have to be like high anxiety, stress to do it. And of course, you're there as a coach, as a beautiful resource, and for people too. So I want to keep going. And again, if there are questions, please send them over. We'll get to them in shortly, actually. Um, what do you think, when you think about people feeling stuck? How do people give themselves permission to want something different?
Oh yeah.
How does that work? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think that's really, it's really a challenge. And that's where I've found being in a group setting and having other people who have different perspectives, different life experiences, sharing where they're at, it really makes that permission process a lot easier because you're with your peers. The second piece I will say, and this is something I get across to all of my clients, is you are feeling personally stuck and that you need to get a new job or think about your career. But I want you to know that there are organizations and systems that are set up that are making it difficult for you, that are actually causing, I mean, the fact that we do not train managers in organizations on how to be people leaders, that is what causes so much of the stress for individuals when they have too much work, they don't have role clarity, they haven't been taught about how to push back or give feedback. So all of these things where you as an individual may feel, I'm not good enough at X, well, actually, that's not on you because you're within a system that hasn't set up the supports that are needed to be able to show up and do your job effectively. And I think it's really important to to let people know because it's not all on them. And once you realize that it's not your fault, that it's you're part of a system and part of organizations that you do not get to influence, it becomes easier for folks to give
Mhm.
themselves a little bit of that permission or that grace or that self-compassion.
Mhm. When you're in that coaching relationship and people do break through to that permission,
Yeah.
what are some of the questions people allow themselves to ask? Like what possibilities open up once they
Mhm.
take that permission? What do you see?
It's so fun, Kate. Like when we can kind of like hold aside, like, yes, there are all these problems, and yes, all these things. How do we do it? Let me hold that for you. Tell me, like, if you had a magic wand, like, what would you want to do? And like seeing people kind of light up or like have this invitation to just think big, think about what they would do if they didn't have these constraints, it's pretty amazing. And people go in these directions that I think surprise them. And then as a coach, I get to kind of like fan the flames and be like, oh yeah, tell me more about that. What was great about being a summer camp leader? Like, what did you like about, being the person who was coaching kids to jump in the water? Like, how does that connect with what you enjoy doing right now as a people leader? Like, it's really
Yeah.
fun and it gets to feel playful and it gets to feel creative. And those are some of the things that people come in often are saying, like, I'm stuck. And this piece around wanting to be creative keeps coming up again and again for people who are like, I don't really like art and I'm not really, I'm not trying to start a painting class or watercoloring, but like there's something about being creative that I think a lot of professionals are feeling like they don't have access to. And I think that coaching and like group coaching in particular is such a cool place because it can happen with other people who are sharing similar values and are also at a similar place in their life.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes. Being creative, allowing yourself to ask the questions with that magic wand. That's a question we love to ask. If you could wave a magic wand, what company would you want to be working at in what kind of role, if nothing else mattered? And I love sharing the story that we had a food scientist who worked for a very large multinational food company. And she shared with me, well, I would love to work at Disney. And I said, well, okay. Guess what? Disney has food scientists because they have all of their recipes and things. And, why don't we check into that? Why don't we see if that's possible? So once you allow there's such great, giving that permission. So I love that that's a theme for you in with working with your clients as well, Julie. Um, so another question, if someone's feeling stuck, if someone's feeling stuck, and I don't know, if you're feeling stuck right now, raise your hand in the chat if you're if or just put a note in the chat if feeling stuck is something you're struggling with right now. Um, what are some of the signs that people are ready to get unstuck? Okay, so they may be stuck, but are they ready to get unstuck? What do you think some of the signs are, Julie?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that being able to have a conversation and with someone and have them describe their stuckness. So like getting a little bit clearer. And I'll often ask folks, what's like the kernel of stuckness? Like what's the kind of like piece, like if you had to drill it down to like one thing that you could change. And if somebody feels um, really clear on that, and if someone feels really committed, that's the challenge because there are a lot of people who feel stuck and actually don't know if they deserve what they actually want to go after. And so being able to have a conversation with someone and to understand if they feel worthy enough. And once that's there, really being able to say like, are you committed to making this happen? Because I can help and I can like think about what's going to support you, but I need to know if someone feels committed to making a change and if they have the capacity to. Because if they are like running from fire to fire and they've got young kids at home, elderly parents they're taking care of, they might not have that capacity, even though they are feeling that stuckness. So it's really about like, what is the kernel of your stuckness? Can you identify that? Let's get really clear on what your capacity is. And do you believe that you can make this change and deserve to make this change? And sometimes I'll ask that on calls. And it kind of gives me that idea of like, okay, I think you're ready to work with others in a group program. Or, hey, I want you to do some of this like solo reflection work and come back to me when you kind of have uncovered a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I know we have a question in the Q&A, Lourdes, and I'm just going to ask one question more to Julie before we get to that. And please add additional questions, everybody, because we're opening up the Q&A now. So you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A button in the webinar controls. But Julie, my question that I was going to ask for you just flew out of my head. Oh my God.
Happens.
I was inspired by something you said and now it's totally gone. Swiss cheese brain today, Swiss cheese. Okay, well, let's go to the question and then we'll come back. Maybe I'll remember it by then. Lourdes, what have we got?
Yeah, so Anne Marie is asking, is feeling stuck the same as burnout or are they different?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, Burnout gets thrown around a lot, which totally valid, but it is actually like very well studied and there are some really clear signs of burnout. If you have access to either the book or the podcast, Burnout Completing the Stress Cycle by Amelia and Emily Nagoski, they're brilliant and they really get clear on like what is burnout, how does it show up, and how you go about kind of completing the stress cycle. And so I would say being able to even have a cursory kind of like, does this sound like where I'm at, is a really good way to say like, okay, it sounds like it's burnout versus, okay, maybe it's that I am feeling stuck. And I also would say burnout often shows up in terms of physical manifestations. So when people are telling me like, I'm not, sleeping, or I had one person who was like, I think it's time, like my eye just won't stop twitching at work. I was like, yeah, that's pretty good sign. So I would say don't downplay it or don't try to like medicalize it as well. I think there's a lot of like, oh, it's toxic or it's burnout or it meets this criteria, but just like learn more. I think that is an amazing resource, that book. And I would also say there is an incredible podcast where those two authors are speaking with Dr. Brene Brown. And it's a great listen, and to be able to kind of identify, oh, that sounds like me, versus, okay, maybe that's not me, but I want to be aware of what burnout looks like so that I can take these steps before I get to that place.
Mhm. Thank you, Julie. I remembered my question.
Yeah.
And I think it looks like we have another one. So keep the questions coming, everybody. Kat, we're going to get to you in just a moment. When we are first meeting with potential clients and they're coming to us saying, I need a resume redone. Um, they sometimes don't know exactly what they want to do next.
Mhm.
They have a lack of clarity on what they want moving forward, but they know where they are. They can't do it any longer.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I think oftentimes it's a combination of some burnout,
Mhm.
but then the burnout, and I have listened to podcasts with those two on it, with the stress cycle. And it's very good how how you have to go
Right.
through it is the theory. But the lack of clarity for what someone wants moving forward, it's so tough. I just like my heart breaks for people when they don't know what they want going forward. And that's where then we'll introduce them to coaches because we come in when someone's pretty clear. We can write your career materials for you then.
Yeah.
But when you're not clear, you need a coach or more time reflecting and working on it. But what do you advise people? You talked about it a little bit earlier, like finding that spark again, but what do you advise or do with people who know they're stuck but don't know where they want to go?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say the first thing that I don't think I've mentioned before, but it's like you get to decide, I can do these things, but I don't want to anymore. That's really
Mm.
hard. When I was in policy roles and it was not serving me and I had to leave my job, I had to try so hard not to apply for job titles that I had already had. Because yes, I could do it. It would feel so good to get an interview for the senior policy role. Like, I know I could interview well, and it's like I had to train myself to say, like, no, that's not going to serve you, and you're going to have to not apply for things. And it's the same thing with like resumes. It's like I don't want to put on these things. If I do not like people management, do not highlight the fact that I am a people manager. Like, highlight what I want to do. And so what I would say is my kind of process is in a program, it is we're going big picture. What do we want to do? Like overall with our work, with our life, what feels meaningful? We dive down into our ideal workday. What do I want to be doing in my workday? How much time do I want to be spending by myself versus with other people? Then let's think about what we have and what we need. Let's put together a hypothesis of what we think is best going to serve us, and then let's create a plan of action to move forward. So that's kind of the process. But a lot of it, Kate, is acknowledging just because you can do something really well, or you've excelled at it, or you've been told that you're really, really good at something, if that's not what is going to light you up and support you in this next stage of your
Yeah.
life, then you have to
Yeah.
just let it go.
That's
Which is
so
hard.
hard, that
Yeah.
acceptance piece, that letting go. It is. And there's a lot of my ego
Yeah.
can get involved in that, right? Like, but if I accept a lower title, I'm less of a person or I have less value in the world. No, if you don't want to manage people,
Oh
it's
my God.
okay to be an individual contributor. Um, yeah. It looks like we had another question come in, Lourdes. What have we got here?
Yes, the first one was, do you ever notice people feeling more stuck in certain types of roles versus, oops, that's the next one. Yeah, do you find people feeling more stuck in certain types of roles, or is it pretty even across the board?
I haven't noticed a pattern for the type of role. I will say a pattern I noticed is people who do not have really clear role clarity about what it is they're doing. I think a lot of the people, especially women that I work with, will take on more things, and that will lead to feeling very overwhelmed and as if they're not doing enough, and it becomes this cycle. And oftentimes what I am trying to coach around is like, are you clear? Like, are you very clear with your manager about what is in your job responsibilities and what aren't? So I would say not necessarily types of roles, but I would say the amount of things that can be piled onto a role when it's more generalist, I will say. So like somebody who's like a project manager, that's a pretty wide role and a lot of things can be dumped. Whereas if it's like, hey, I'm a software engineer, hey, I'm pretty specialized. And so sometimes there isn't the same level of taking on too much.
Um, Yeah, I like that. We see that a lot. Women, especially, well, we deal mostly with women. It's got to be across the board. It has to be because it's these type of people who are so giving and loving and they want to contribute. And so they take on more and they kind of, and I've done it in the past too. It's kind of a people pleasing thing. I don't do it any longer. There's something about wanting to make the contribution and help people that drives really good people into that overwhelm and getting stuck. And then one of the stuck things that we see could happen is not no longer being promoted because
Yeah.
you are so useful at this problem solving
Yeah.
level that if they promote you out of it, they know they have to hire three people to replace you.
100%. And Kate, I work with people who are often in the public sector, nonprofit, who are like doing work that feels like very mission driven and purposeful. So like, yeah, they're there to make the world a better place and to help people. And so not having an organization set the like clear parameters of their role and encourage boundaries and actually like talk about the fact that we can do more when we have our own cup that's been taken care of, when we take care of our own needs. Yeah, it's just a recipe for people to feel like burnout, stuckness, and just I'm not doing enough.
Yeah, yeah. And resentment, like if I get looked over for a
Oh yeah,
promotion again, right?
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay. Lourdes, we have another
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I like this one too. I love the idea of tailoring a resume to what you want to do. How do you do that with integrity and still be realistic about the skills you currently have versus those you want to develop?
Oh, I love that question. Um, I usually say like let's just like take the resume out of it. So as much as we can like start from like I call it the how monster. The how monster is like, well, how am I going to get that job? Is it the resume? How am I going to have enough time to apply for this thing? How am I? And we just have to like gently move the how monster away first. And so then it really is this process of, okay, let's think into the things that I have done and have other people, and this is with like group coaching, other people are asking questions like, tell me more about this thing that you have done. Like, you're glossing over this, like maybe you are a recruiter and you're like, oh yeah, I recruit, 35 people a day. And, you're just saying it because you're used to it in your spheres. Like that's just normal. Somebody else who's like, say, a planner in the public sector, it's like, wait, you get through that many people? Like, how do you do that? Like what you must have really good listening skills. So like you're learning in a setting where other people don't know what it is that you do. And I think some of that curiosity, the genuine curiosity from other people is actually what like gives people more ideas about the skills and like the broadened set of knowledge and qualities that they actually can represent. So sometimes it kind of emerges just through these organic conversations. And then Kate, I mean, I'm sure you have a process for with the resume piece, but I will often say to people, let's just do I'll look at your resume, you don't get to look at it, and I just get to ask you a million questions about this. And like my
Yeah,
curiosity then drives us into, oh, tell me more. It sounds like you actually have a lot of things that you could do.
yeah, yeah. That's great, Julie. Yeah, I love moving the how monster out of the way. There thematically, what I'm hearing with you is it's back to the pause, like stop taking action, And
Mhm.
let's pause because again, moving that how monster out of the way. And again, when we're in crisis, this is totally normal
Oh,
to
yeah.
want to move into action. It's just, is it serving you or would a pause serve you even more strongly?
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. And it's all like your nervous system. I mean, your nervous system is just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I have to have the job. And like LinkedIn says this is due on whatever date. And so, like,
Yeah.
it is actual work, we know, to
Yeah.
be able to notice our nervous systems being in overdrive
Yeah.
and kind of put the conditions in place that allow us to move into a different state from reactive to proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Claire, to your question, I have just a couple other thoughts that from what Julie shared there. At Get Her Hired, what we do is we reverse engineer your resume from the future role you want. And how you do that with integrity
Mhm.
is we look at the core competencies, the skills and the strengths. So to me, this is how I define a competency. There's all these other, ways to define it. Here's how I look at it very simply. It's a combination of the skills you have learned in your life and career and the strengths, the innate things that you have in you that you can't necessarily learn. You can highlight them and try to downplay them, but it's kind of like how you show up. So it's the things you've learned and how you show up combined to make a competency. Okay. And you'll often find that if you're in a larger organization, you will get hired, promoted, et cetera, based on a competency model. And we say, okay, what are you looking for in the future? And then we go out and we research the competencies that are needed for that future role. And now here's the integrity piece. I guarantee you have ways of demonstrating that you have those future competencies right frickin' now. And it's a matter of, like Julie said, we're going to interview you. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to pull out data from you that you thought was irrelevant, but is very relevant for the future you. And that's how we work to develop that with our clients because we don't want your resume, your CV to be a tombstone. It's not a historical document. If it is, you're not being competitive. You're going to be there with 5,000 other people. And the people we work with, stick your elbows out and claim your future space in what you're doing right now. So that's a little soapbox, Julie.
I love
This,
it, Kate.
I
We're
get
we're
so
aligned in this.
passionate
So
about it. So passionate.
yeah. And can I add one thing to that, just as I was
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah.
So one of the things that I work with folks on is reconnecting to your core values, like the ways that you
Mhm.
look at the world that you may not even realize are like they're your lens to the world. They're how you make decisions, and oftentimes they're really kind of implicit. And so actually being able to like bring them out, make it really explicit, really gives you, I think, important guardrails when you are assessing whether you want to apply for a role or have that conversation or really think about whether if you want to stay where you are and like seek promotion is like, is this really supporting my core values or is it in conflict? Because I will tell you, the quickest way to get to burnout is if you find yourself working in a role that is in direct conflict with a core value. I have a
Yes.
client, we pulled out of her that honesty is one of her core values. And once she realized that, she said, that is why I am freaking miserable working at this firm because I have seen the leader do things that are directly like dishonest. And she was just like, it was a
Mhm.
light bulb moment. And I was like, well, that's why you're so out of alignment because we can be in jobs where we feel like, oh, I have to do something that doesn't really feel good to me, right? There are federal workers right now. They are doing a lot of things that are feeling out of alignment with what they personally care about. And that's where you get to that point of like, can I continue to show up and work in a way that's out of alignment with my values? Or if it gets into conflict, direct conflict with my values, that is often the like split the switch. We got to shut this down. I got to go somewhere else.
That's really, really critical. That values piece. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's when a lot of people come to us is when they have that conflict with the values, especially in our federal workforce right now.
Yeah.
in the US. So we're going to wrap up shortly. So if other people have questions, please send them over. I have one for you right now, Julie. What is one kind of micro step if someone's on the call today, they're feeling stuck? What is something actionable that they could do today to start reconnecting with themselves? What would you share?
I love that. What I would say is find time on your calendar. I would say if you can find an hour, whether it's today, whether it's over the weekend, where you can sit somewhere and think about. I've got a reflection template with like 5 questions. I will share it with folks. And so you could take that, print it out, spend an hour, do some free writing. That would be the one thing that you could do for yourself, is to like give permission to go inward.
All right, take some time, go inward. That sounds great. Thank you so much. Well, if we don't have any other questions right now, we're going to just do a little bit of wrap up here. Julie, how can people find you, get a hold of you, work with you? What are the places? Where do we find out more about you?
Yeah, my website is reframecareer.com. I always offer free discovery calls with folks because I really, in my integrity, want to make sure I can support you where you're at. So you are welcome to go onto the website, book a call. You're certainly welcome to reach out via email. I am doing group workshops sort of every other month, usually, and that is kind of 4 weeks in a row. So it's kind of short enough to be actionable, but there's also the spaciousness to actually be able to reflect. You get to show up as a participant. And then one-on-one is always an option. I work with lots of folks for between 4 and 6 sessions to kind of get that started. So lots of ways you can find me on LinkedIn. I go pop in and out, but I would be happy to share resources with folks or just have a conversation.
Awesome.
We did have one more question pop up. What resources might you suggest to re-identify core values?
Ooh, it's such a good question. I mean, if you Google core values, obviously there's a million different resources. I will say that there's kind of 2 ways into the core values piece. One is there's a lot of exercises where you can look at kind of a list of values and kind of you only get 10 and circle the ones that are most important. And that can kind of help you kind of to a certain extent. The way that I really like to do core values is for you to think about a peak experience in your life, like not necessarily work related, not something like a high school graduation, like really when were you feeling that you were most at your highest self, that you were doing and being and just existing the way that you want to on this earth. So I think about reflect on that and write a little bit about it and see what themes are coming out there. That is the exercise I have people go through. And oftentimes we'll have a conversation about it, and we'll have a conversation about it in a group. And it kind of emerges a little bit through that reflection of a peak experience. So there's different ways to do it. But that's kind of my approach. But even getting some language from doing a kind of Google will help.
Yeah. Julie, I love that. And we even take that a little bit further then, because sometimes we need to help people write a leadership statement. So what's your leadership identity?
Yeah.
Like who are you what's your leadership philosophy? And so taking from what you said, those core values, and then Lourdes, as another resume writer, she and I will ask questions like, how do you know someone is transparent? How do you know someone is humble? What actions do they show you that tell you that they value uh,
Yeah.
collaboration, right?
Yeah.
And so this then again helps just explode out those skills, those values, those competencies and strengths that you have in you that don't get out on the piece of paper that's called your resume.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, right? There's so much beautiful value in people. And this is where someone like Julie can help you really see yourself and see your best self and the beautiful sides, the skilled, competent, and collaborative, and just really capable, how capable you really are. And sometimes working with a third party, like a coach or a writer, can really bring that out in a way where we're not trained. Like we said, earlier in the world, we're trained to only see so far ahead of ourselves. But yet, here's what I say sometimes: Julie, you're the Mona Lisa. You're stuck in the frame of the Mona Lisa,
Mm.
right? Great place to be, right? Except when there's being mustard spread on you as the Mona Lisa. But the other people looking at the Mona Lisa can see things that you can't about
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
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 And when
And
and the only thing I'd add to that, Kate, is when you are feeling stuck, you are not at your most objective.
oh
You're
yes.
certainly, you're not in a place where you're like, oh, I'm awesome, because you're feeling stuck and downtrodden and frustrated and no one's listening to you. You just can't be your own best cheerleader at that point. You just
Yeah.
can't. And I think we need to take agency over the fact that it's not on us to figure that out. And there's a reason why we need to invest in ourselves, because having the job, having the career, that is what allows us to live the life that we want to live. So making that investment to get some clarity with a third party is huge. And I really wish it was something that we had an expectation around, because again, it's a normal part of being an adult and going through life and
Yeah.
changing.
Gorgeous. Well, Julie, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We will make sure that this recording gets out in the world and more people can benefit from hearing from you and finding out how to work with you. We really appreciate it. And for those of you on the call today, we invite you to our next undeniable session coming up on June 5th. And in that session, it's called Rewriting Your Story. Don't forget the money chapter. And we're going to be talking with wealth advisor Susan Savet, where we're talking about the financial aspects of your career. So if that's something you're interested in, please do sign up when that notification comes out. Have a beautiful day, beautiful holiday weekend, and thanks again, Julie. Appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Kate. And thanks, Lourdes. Thanks to the whole team. I really appreciate what you do. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.